Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm able to have some audio this time. Again, can't guarantee it will go well. I'm just learning all this software because I've never painted online and recorded myself, so I hope it's okay. As you can see, this video will be a cat. I will also provide instructions and a stencil outline of the cat's face, which might be a little bit more proportionate than this one, but we will see how it goes. I will show you the paints and the brushes I'm using throughout the video, but they will also be in the instructions as well. And I guess with this, as opposed to in class, you can pause at any point, you can rewind, you can play it faster, you can play it slower, so it really works for you. And again, just let me know if you have any suggestions or comments or questions, and I'll try to get back to you if I can. Again, I was hoping to do more videos, but time has been of a constraint, so I've only been able to do this one now. But hopefully we can do more for Christmas, and then maybe I will actually see you guys in person in the new year. So yeah, enjoy, and I will talk to you sometime soon. So we're starting off with the drawing. Again, I'll also provide a stencil which you can print out. All I'm basically doing is drawing a circle for the cat's face. Not a perfect circle because cat's face are more of a horizontal oval. I'm also going to draw the ears on, which I personally think should not have been quite so pointy and should have been more out to the side. It kind of looks like a bunny cat, but that could just be me. So drawing a couple of triangles on either side for the ears, adding a bit more out to the sides of the face. Now for the eyes, you can either just eyeball it, or you can also do kind of draw a cross in the middle of the face. I'm sure you've seen those before, and then just draw the eyes kind of on the horizontal lines with the corners of them meeting at the center. Again, when you're painting, you can change these. You can also use the outline I provided as well. And then you're going to be drawing the nostrils coming down from either side of the eye. You will see later on that I actually kind of change where the nose is when I start painting, so it's not exact. They have kind of that dumpling shaped nose. And then their little chin underneath. Again, I draw the nose here for now, but I end up actually raising it later because I think it's too low down there. So up to you if you want to add some other details. And then we're just going to add in his neck as well. Okay, so now we're going to get some white paint. And we're going to be mixing this to start on the base of his fur. As you can see, he's kind of a gray cat, so we're going to get some black as well. Again, always make sure you mix your paints before you pour them. Now we're going to be doing a lot of layers of the gray throughout this, so it's up to you how dark or light of a gray you want it to be. I'm doing sort of a half and half. I mean half and half in a gray color, but you're still using mainly white because black goes a long way. I'm using a flat brush. It does not need to be very big. As you can see, I'm not using a very big canvas. and then I'm just going to start filling in his face. And if you can, try to do the strokes just as the fur would be, so the fur is not coming out from the air into his face, it's growing from his face outwards and upwards. So try to do it as such to the best that you can. Obviously you can go over it after, and we're going to be doing a lot of layers. So I'm going to be using white paint next again, just white on its own, and I'm going to start doing some white on the lighter parts of his fur to start um, giving some dimension to his face. So this cat actually doesn't use that many colors. As you'd see on the sheet, it's actually just a lot of variations of white and blacks to make gray, and then besides his eyes, his nose, his ears, everything's white and black pretty much. So again, his fur is lighter around his eyes, the top of his head, the edges of his cheeks and such. So now I'm going to be using some black, and I'm going to be starting to do the darker layers of his fur. This painting is really just a lot of layering. I'm still using the flat brush again. It's not quite pure black, but it is definitely going to be darker than the base color that you were using. And again, just remembering, still do the fur going up from the middle outwards. And this isn't going to be everywhere. This is just going to be darker parts, so above his head, part of his ears, and then going to be part of his cheeks closer to his muzzle. Okay, so now we're moving on to the inside of his ears. So this is going to be a mix of preferably a darker red as opposed to bright red, and then some burnt umber or brown, which is really all that is. And you're going to be mixing those two together about 50-50. You want it a little bit red, but you want it a little bit brown. And then we're going to be filling in his ears with this color. I've added a little bit of white just so it's not quite so dark, but it ultimately doesn't matter because we are going to be making it darker after. And then you're just completely filling in his ears with this color. And now I'm going to be using more of the red, so the pre-mix, and we're just going to be doing some spots on his ears, kind of the equivalent of cat earlobes. And we're just going to be filling in some of those areas. Again, this will be a lot of layers because he has a lot of fur in there. His whiskers are going to come over there as well. So now I'm going to be taking some red and some white, and we're going to be mixing it to make a pink color. So you're probably going to want to use more white than red, and this is going to be to outline his nose and his mouth. And you can use a stencil, you can draw this again with pencil if you paint it over it, or you can try to freehand it. So here I'm actually painting his nose higher up than where I drew it because I think it was too far down, and that is fine to do. Just take it nice and slow, and remember you can always change it after the fact. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to his eyes. We're going to be using a bright yellow, just a pure bright yellow, and you're going to fill in both of the circles where his eyes will be. And now you're going to be using a finer tip brush if you have one, and some black, and we're going to be outlining his eyes. And they have very almond big cat eyes. So you're going to want to try to get those lines if you're able to, and see they don't connect perfectly, so his top eye the line's going to go over the bottom one. They aren't going to connect perfectly at the corner. So try to do that if you can. Also, the top line can be thicker than the bottom line as well because he has a bit of a shadow casting over his eyes, so it's okay if the top one is darker coming over the yellow a bit. So now we're going to get some green. It doesn't really matter which green you use. I use like a leaf green, but you can use any kind of green you want. You don't even have to use green. You can use any color you want. Don't use the same yellow though, because that won't make any difference. And you're just doing it very lightly in the middle. You can see that he's starting to have eyes now. That's really all you need. And then after that, you're going to go back to black. You're going to use your pointed brush, and you're going to do his pupils right in the middle. I always get pupils and iris mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it's his pupil. And you're just going to do it right in the middle. You might have to go back over and add some green in again and touch up the yellow. It's just kind of a going back and forth until you get it exactly how you want it, but that's the gist of it. You can see his eyes are starting to come in. And then we're going to be adding the catch lights. So this is the light of day, the camera. This is just the light reflecting in his eyes, so you're going to be using pure white. And you're just going to be doing a couple of dots right on his black pupils. They don't have to be in the exact same spot on each, but this, where you put these can really change to make it look like where he's looking. So they're pretty much right in the center here on these ones. So this next bit is just going to be a little bit of fussing. So we're going to be adding more to his face. So you can be touching up his eyes. So you can be adding more green. You can be adding the black again just to get it where you want it to be. You want it so you can see obviously the yellow of his eyes, the green, and then also the black, and then the white as well. And then we're also going to be adding more into his face. So we're going to start to add more of the highlights on his face with the white. So that will be probably under his eyes, a bit more with his nostril. We're going to be adding more white to the sides of his face and the top. So as we've been flushing out his face more, now we're going to use a darker gray to give some definition to his jowls. I don't know that cats have jowls, but so just the bottom of his muzzle, where the top of his mouth is, and then his chin. We're not going to be keeping it gray like this, but we're giving it some shading because it is back under the top of his mouth, so it's going to be darker, not as much light is going to be hitting there. Adding some more onto his nose there. And then we're also going to be going up and starting to add some of the grayer fur over his ears. Now I have noticed what this filming process has been different from when we're doing it in person is this is my first go through of it, and I tend to be all over the place when I'm painting, so I'll do a little bit on his ears, and then I'm going to switch to a different color and do a little bit there, so I still have to get that less chaotic for you guys, so I do apologize. But pretty much we're just adding the layers to his fur now. So we're doing a little bit darker gray. We're doing it over his ears. Again, you want to try to keep the strokes like it's his fur. Again, so just nice light strokes. You don't want big blobs or anything like that if you can help it. We're also overlapping his fur on the front of his face over the opening of his ears, adding a bit more onto his sides as well. Again, this can really control what direction he's facing. The more you add to one side, the more it's going to look like he's favoring that side as opposed to the other side. So you can really change a lot just by how much paint you're adding to the cat. Okay, so now we're going to get some dark gray, pretty much almost black, and we're going to start to do the darker parts of his face. A lot of this will be in the ear area, upper part of the head, so we're going to be outlining the top inside sides of his ears. And the black, you're going to be doing some of the black throughout his ears, and we're going to be doing it on top of his head as well. And now I'm going to be doing some of the layering with the white on top of this. So as you can see, this painting is just really a lot of layering. At least how I've learned with doing fur is just like fur in real life. It has a lot of layers to it, and depending on the coloration, it can have many different colors going throughout. So we're just kind of switching back between dark and light, getting a lot of the layers in, which will just add a lot more to the painting. The more details you do, the more detailed it's going to look in general. So all this last part of the video pretty much is going to be is just a lot more the continuation of the detail work. So adding more darkness to his eyes. We're going to go back and work on his chin. So I guess I'll kind of just go over the general goals per each part of his body. So you want obviously well, I guess not obvious, that sounds rude, but you want the front part of his face, so where his nose is, you're going to want that to end up being all white. So if you've had some gray in there or there's some pink of his nose that you don't want, you can go back and do layers of white with that. Also his chest, or I guess his neck that you can see, you're going to want it to be a very light gray under where his head is, because that will be the shading that will give it some dimension so it doesn't just look like he's 2D. And then you want white in the rest of the spot. You want the gray on either side of his body. His ears, you're going to want to have generally the dark along the top part of his ears. The bottom part, so the outside edge of it, facing the outside of his body, is not going to be as dark. The inside of his ears are going to have the redness, and then you're going to have your layers of black, gray, and white. Around his eyes, the bottom part of his eyes, where his fur is going to be lighter. The top part where the fur is going to be darker. The edges of his face, as I mentioned before, are going to be lighter, almost like they're sort of blending into the white background. And then his fur is going to be a little bit darker near where his fur meets his white muzzle. And then once you get through all this layering, which you can obviously follow along second by second, or you can skip ahead or go through it quickly if you want to see. It's just a lot of doing details until you get it where you want it. Again, this is just how I paint. There's a lot of different ways to paint. You might be able to see it quite easily. I just tend to do a lot of details going back and forth until I kind of get it where I'd like to get it. Now, once all that's done, you can do the details of his nose and his mouth. So what you can do is you can just use a red, and you can just do kind of two little lines for his actual nostrils, and also a little line just where his mouth would be, so you can kind of see a little bit of the mouth, and that's a little bit later on in the video. And then finally you will add his whiskers, and they will come out from his muzzle, and you will just use white with your fine point brush, and you will draw them out from his face outwards. And then you will also do them above his eyes, so not right out from his eyes, but a little bit above his eyes, like a couple centimeters, and then they'll go up and over his ears. And again, that's a little bit further on in the video. And then finally, I'm just covering the entirety of the canvas, which is not cat, in white, just because when I was using the pencil, I tend to smudge the pencil all over the canvas on the side I'm painting on. So I'm just going to do a layer of white paint all over to kind of finish it off. So this was definitely a trickier one, and then especially in this new medium, which I'm not quite confident in yet, but I appreciate you guys if you've made it this far. So just let me know how you found it. I'll probably do an easier one next, and obviously with each video I hope it gets a little more clear and concise. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too complicated. Do not get frustrated with yourself at all of how it goes. This is quite a tricky one, and as you can even see, I just think of him as a fathead cat because his eyes and his ears look really close together, but then his head looks really fat. So, but I don't know, maybe that's just how this cat looks. So anyway, just let me know how it goes, and thanks very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Bye bye.